Alright guys, I wanted to talk to you about how your game objects are going to operate inside of Unity. Like some of the game objects, like my Ghost Racket and my Pac-Man, they have certain parameters, just like the walls of this game. So if I click on any of my wall options, you're going to see that it's a sprite. There's some transform settings, and there's a box collider 2D. Okay, so when I added the component box collider, it's pretty much saying that we're adding physics to it. Like somehow this part of the game has to act somewhat like it would in the real world. If something were to collide into it, it's gonna bounce off. Okay, so in order for it to behave that way, I had to add this box collider 2D component. So if I add component down on the side, you could type in box collider and then the 2D option, and then this panel is going to show up. Okay, you want to make sure it's checked. I believe it should automatically be checked. So each of your walls should have a box collider added to it. So if I go through each one I'm clicking, each one of mine has a box collider. Okay, so you're going to need to do that to each item. Now if I go to my sprite, my little ghost character, not only has it got a box collider, because if it bounces off something, if it hits it, things are going to bounce off of it. Okay, so any object that is moving within a game 2D or 3D, if it's going to move, you've got to give it a rigid body. Okay, so once again, I go to add component. I'm going to type in rigid 2D because this is a 2D game. I click it. Look at my settings over here, guys. All right, it needs to be dynamic. I think I had to check simulated. Okay. Default gravity scale is 1. Okay, if you don't want it to spin like in my game, because I left the gravity scale at 1, when something hits it, like that ball, when it hits my sprite, Pac-Man, or Ghost, there's a relationship. When it hits it, it causes that sprite to spin. Okay, so if you change it to 0, it's not going to spin because that means there's 0 gravity affecting it. You want to make sure it's discrete. Stay awake because obviously you want it awake the whole time. Interpolate, which is one of your vocabulary words, which I'm blanking out right now. I set it to none. I have to go back and let me check on Mr. Pac-Man here. If I check on Pac-Man, interpolate none. Okay, alright, so that's correct. I just want to make sure. So, both because Pac-Man and the Ghost Rackets are moving in the 2D game world, it has to have a rigid body 2D. Okay, so you have to add that component. Okay, so I've gone over adding a box collider to the sprites and adding a rigid body.